All right, welcome again, everybody. It is 2:01, and it is time to begin our session today of Junior Achievement's Women's Future Leadership Academy. This is Christy Bedron with Junior Achievement. We are so happy to have you here today. Before we begin, we would like to thank our wonderful sponsors who make this event possible every week. Our presenting sponsors, Sanofi, and our sponsors, ADP, Janssen, New Jersey Resources, State Farm, Allstate, AmeriHealth, AT&T, L'Oreal, CDW, Deloitte, Crow, Lockheed Martin, PSE&G, Realogy, Santander, and Subaru. Some fantastic companies who are all involved with Junior Achievement and the success of our students. So we thank you so much to all of our students, to all of our sponsors for your support. And welcome students. Students, we love to use the chat room during this first portion of the meeting. So please feel free to introduce yourself in that chat room. You'll see the little button on the bottom of your screen. Feel free to jump in there, say hello. I see a few students have said hello already. Say hello, and students and volunteers. If you have questions that you'd like to ask during the first part of the meeting, please feel free to do so. All lines are muted except for our presenters for this portion of the meeting. And later you'll have a chance when we move to the breakout sessions to use your camera and your microphone. And again, this portion of the meeting is being recorded and will be made available later. Today, our agenda really quick. This is our welcome from myself and our intern Oriana, who I will introduce in a moment. Then we have two really exciting STEM career speakers from PSE&G who are joining us today. We'll hear a little bit from them. Then at around 2:20, we will move to the WebEx meeting portion of the event, and that is where you'll have the opportunity to connect with students and each other in a more collaborative setting where you'll be able to use your microphone and your camera. We'll start with mentor introductions and breakout sessions. And then at 12:55, we'll all come back together for closing remarks. Another reminder, students, you can earn Junior Achievement Certificate of Leadership if you participate in 5 or more sessions, either live or pre-recorded, and submit a final project to me at cbedron@ja.org. There's no due date. We don't grade them. Have fun with them. They should be any format you like that kind of captures what you've learned from the session or any goals you have for the future. And then you'll receive your certificate when you submit your project. Again, thank you to all who have submitted your projects already. If you haven't received your certificate from me, please be patient, stay tuned. You will get them very quickly. And again, the Certificate of Leadership is a great addition to your college application or resume. So if you have any questions, please feel free, students, to shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to give you more information. So before we begin with our speakers, I would like to take a moment to introduce our student intern, Oriana Nelson, who is on the line. Oriana, would you please say hello to the students and volunteers?
Yeah, of course, gladly. Hi everyone, as Chrissy said, my name is Oriana. Despite how hectic my school schedule is, I'm so excited to be here with you today as a JA intern. JA has provided me with so many opportunities. Today is my experience as a JA high school hero, which has been made possible by PSE&G. That's why it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our featured career speakers from PSE&G, who are Gina Vanderlin and Prana Joliker. Welcome and thank you so much for being here. Gina, would you like to start us off?
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me for this opportunity to speak. My name is Gina Vanderlin. I'm the Health and Safety Program Manager at PSE&G Long Island. I oversee the implementation of the Health and Safety Management Plan for the Customer Services line of business, which includes approximately 700 employees and multiple operating locations across Long Island. Occupational health and safety is really a field of study that's concerned with injury and illness trends in worker populations, and then we propose and implement strategies, policies, and control measures to prevent them from occurring. One of the core functions that's associated with my role is the identification, assessment, and control of hazards that are present in the workplace, along with education and training of employees on how to protect themselves against those hazards. This is especially important in high risk or very dangerous jobs. For example, employees in my line of business routinely perform work on live energy sources, such as electric meters. Exposure to electricity can be very hazardous, right? We could be electrocuted, shocks, burns. It's my job to understand the basic functions of all the different job tasks that we do, and then determine how best to control the exposure to the hazard or energy source. This would include things like developing safe work procedures, performing energy calculations, determining the best type of personal protective equipment, such as insulated rubber gloves to prevent against contact. Health and safety spans all types of occupations. It's one of the things that I love most about my role. It encompasses a wide variety of disciplines, everything from toxicology and epidemiology all the way to ergonomics and violence prevention. Depending on the type of work environment and the structure of the role, health and safety can often be paired with other functions like environmental management or quality. In my current role, I only manage the health and safety aspect, but in previous roles, I was also responsible for environmental compliance as well. While environmental health and safety has become my passion, it's not at all how I started my professional career. In fact, my undergraduate degree is in environmental science and policy. I originally entered college as a pre-veterinary student, and during my first year, I realized it was not the career for me. I wanted to stay in the sciences, so I dipped into environmental science and was hooked instantly. I found a lot of value in law and policy as I progressed through my education, and I decided to add it as a minor. I graduated and started working as an environmental consultant, which is some of the pictures that you see on my slide here. I spent a number of years doing hazardous waste site assessments like soil and groundwater and air sampling, and designing and installing remediation systems. Many of the tasks that I was responsible for were very high risk, which is where I was introduced to the concept of health and safety. I fell in love with the field as a whole and eventually transitioned to pursue EHS full time. Last year, I achieved my CSP, which is the Certified Safety Professional designation through the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. Given the breadth and depth of my field, there are many different types of skill sets that you can use to be successful. First is excellent analytical and problem-solving skills. You constantly have to be able to evaluate and assess different types of work environments and come up with solutions. Excellent written verbal communication skills is also very important. A lot of times it's my responsibility to convey information to many different stakeholders, management, employees, contractors, and even the general public. Excellent organizational skills and attention to detail is always a big one. Documentation is so important in compliance, but information can become overwhelming very quickly. So it's important that you stay organized. It's also important when you have an incident or illness where you might have to do an incident analysis or a root cause investigation. And in certain instances, you may be called to serve as an expert witness. Your ability to work in non-conventional work environments is also a big one. I am not restricted to a desk or a cubicle. My job takes me out in the field into various work environments, and it's one of the things I love. Another big one is the ability to understand and interpret regulations. A large part of health and safety is compliance. So understanding laws, policies, regulations, how they're written and how they apply is essential to achieving compliance. For students that are looking to pursue STEM opportunities, my best advice is networking. It's invaluable to your professional careers, but it's even more important in STEM fields, which evolve rapidly. Networking can be as simple as participating in school clubs, signing up for a newsletter, or even going to a professor's office hours. Many organizations also offer student memberships, so I would encourage you to find something in your field that you think is interesting and look at opportunities to get involved. Internships are also another important way to gain purchase in a STEM field. Many entry-level positions nowadays require some level of experience. It's really essential to get that experience as soon as possible. because after college or, the educational field that you decide to pursue, sometimes you'll get stuck trying to gain experience on the back end. And one final thought is that success is not linear. Don't be afraid to explore different opportunities and skill sets. I love my career, but when I first started, I had very little idea it even existed. So it wasn't until I was in the working world that I figured out where my passion truly was. And who knows, maybe your career hasn't even been created yet. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with that, Gina, especially, giving everyone advice is really important. Would Prana also like to add on anything?
Hi, thank you, Oriana. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pradnya Joglekar, and I am with PSENG as well, just like Gina. I work as a senior project manager for PSENG. Most of you probably know what PSENG is. It's a utility company. Some of you probably have this utility company as your, for your homes or for your schools. This company has about 100 facilities across the state in New Jersey and Long Island. And what my team does is we manage all design and construction projects across all these facilities. So a little bit about myself and my background. So I was born and brought up in India. I went to architecture school in India. I graduated with an architecture degree. And then when I came here in the US about 20 years back is when I started my career here as a CAD drafter. And I think most of you probably take these courses in high school now, which is computer-aided drafting or engineering drawing. But when I started 20 years back, I had never used a computer before. The way I learned construction back in India was completely different from the construction here. So my first thing was to actually understand construction. But, when you go to school for something like architecture or any of the STEM fields, your mind gets trained to analyze and to ask questions, right? So any of the STEM fields, any sort of engineering background that you have will help you develop further into whichever field you would want to go. And perfect example, like I said, architecture in India is completely different. When I came here, my first thing was to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. And I started building houses, painting, putting in floors, doing kitchens. And it did feel, even though it felt really good because it was community service, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. But now when I look back, all the practical experience that I had with Habitat for Humanity is helping me and has helped me grow over these years. I'm also a gas engineer, and which also sort of happened, as I was doing architecture, I got some opportunities to do gas engineering. I had not done formal training for gas engineering, but when you have that mindset of asking questions and analysis and engineering, problem solving, you sort of get the hang of it and you understand. So it's very important to develop these skills in high school and in your college. So a few of these really valuable tools that you would learn would be the computer-aided design that I was talking about. The 3D modeling, there are a ton of programs out there. It's called BIM or MicroStation. All of these really help you to start thinking creatively and to solve problems creatively. Another myth that I would like to talk about with architecture is people in the profession or even in the student life feel that it's all about art, which really, I think it's a combination of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and art. So if you introduce A in STEM, it makes it STEAM. And that's what a combination of all of that is really what architecture is. Because unless you understand how all the different elements, it's like a puzzle when you're designing a building. It's very exciting. It's a puzzle. You're trying to make sure how all the different engineerings work together. And when you create something that's visually appealing and aesthetically pleasing for people to see, the amount of satisfaction and how rewarding that experience is, I cannot tell you enough. I'd like to share, what you see here on the screen on the slide. The first picture was actually it's an Acme grocery store in Smyrna, Delaware. And that was my first project when I came here and I started working on. And I used it, I drafted it, I designed the building, and it got constructed. And the feeling, I still have this, and at that time I didn't have my phone. It used to be a camera, and I wouldn't know until I came back and developed it to see how the pictures would be. But I look at it and I'm just so amazed, even today, to see that there is a building standing that I have designed. The other projects that you see here, not as glamorous, but it's still a lot of problem solving, right? So the other three buildings are really PSENG buildings. So there is a retaining wall. So that's a lot of structural work there. One of the pictures that you see on the lower right corner is an entrance to a PSENG facility. This, like I said, the PSENG facilities are from 1960s and early 1950s. So some of them are in a really bad shape. Now to take that, demolish that, and build something new, that satisfaction is tremendous, right? There is another one that you see, it's a customer service center. And that's actually a lead project as well. So even when within architecture and within engineering, there are so many different avenues that you could take. You could specialize in energy efficiency, which is the latest, sort of everybody's, it's all these companies or all the companies have a corporate social responsibility and have responsibility towards the environment. So there is always new research and technology that is being developed to make sure that we do not impact the environment by our actions. So whether it's materials that you use, the way you solve the engineering problems, right? All of that sort of comes together in these buildings. So there's energy efficiency. There is another program called WELL, where they want now the buildings for health and safety, right? How do we make the buildings more efficient? What sort of ventilation is required for the buildings? With COVID-19, there has been so much more research done in the last year to see what sort of materials should be used in the buildings. How should the ventilation be revamped? And how do you do it without really not demolishing the entire facility and redoing the whole thing, right? So how do you, the latest trend is not having assigned seats in offices. So how can you be more flexible, and how do you design your interior spaces where you can make sure there is collaboration? People want to come to work. They are working together. So there are a lot of different areas that you can be involved in, when you have the basic skills, which is an understanding of engineering, an understanding of design, and it all sort of comes together. So it was my biggest advice, or something that I would also tell my daughter. My daughter is 17. She's a junior, and she's going through her APs and trying to figure out what it is that she wants to do. And my biggest advice to her is just keep honing your skills, right? Over the years, you are going to be using them in some shape or form. So don't ever feel that if you take a course, something, and if you don't use it in the first 2-3 years of a career, that it's a waste. Nothing is a waste. No learning is a waste, right? You keep sort of building on your skills as you move forward, and you keep growing as a person, as a professional, as an individual. So that is the favorite quote I have and it's on my slide. It says, "Be the architect of your own life." So take, whichever path feels right to you at that time. Just make sure that you're enjoying it, that it's rewarding in some way or shape. And in somewhere, it's going to all come together, and you will know exactly what it is that you enjoy and how do you want to proceed, from where you are. So at every stage in your life, you'll have different goals, you'll have different priorities, and that's perfectly okay because it all, sort of comes together once you have the basic skill set. Thank you for listening.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our career speakers, Gina and Pradnya from PSE&G. We really appreciate it. What great advice from both of you. We had a couple comments in the chat box. One that I think is really cool. There is one student who is on, and a mentor who was on, who actually went to high school where the student went to high school, which I think is pretty great. So thank you for sharing that. And then we had a question from one of the students, I think something along with what Gina was saying about networking. And the question, let me see if I can find it. The question from one of the students, I think, how would you go about finding opportunities to network? When we're in the pandemic, we can't really do a lot. Gina, maybe I can throw this back over to you. What kind of venues are there for networking? What's the best way to get networking opportunities?
Okay, so one of the best areas for networking that's really picked up steam in a virtual environment is LinkedIn. It's a professional site. It's free to create a profile and go on there. You can express your interests. You can pick groups. They give you sort of a drop down menu of groups that you can kind of indicate your interest in, whether it's animal welfare, health and wealth, the environment. And then what you can do is search groups that are involved in those types of activities and work on building your network. It's free to send people connection requests. A lot of times people will reach out and say, hi, I'm interested in this field. Would you be interested in corresponding with me? And, I've reached out and answered questions about what it is I do, given career advice for people that are interested. So I really love that platform. If you have a field or something in particular that you're really interested in, Google is always a great way to go. Sometimes the best thing to do is discovery by accident. And a lot of times if I'm looking for something or I'm considering a career in a certain industry, if you just do a little research, Glassdoor is a career website, and a lot of times they'll give you introspect into what the career responsibilities are and what qualifications you might need. And then you can kind of use that as a springboard to do some additional research. Hey, is there an organization that sponsors certificates? And if they sponsor certificates, do they do student memberships? Are there clubs attached to these organizations? So those are sort of the big platforms that I use to kind of encourage people to explore different avenues in the field and network and make connections with people. And figure out what's going on. It's also a great place to kind of figure out if companies are offering internships. A lot of times they'll publicize on their groups or company-sponsored webpage that they're doing an internship, and it's a great opportunity to reach out and make connections there as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gina. And students, we are going to be moving to breakout rooms shortly, and you will have at least 1 or 2 mentors, more likely 2 or maybe even 3 mentors in your breakout room. So if you have questions, you'll have the opportunity to ask those questions to your mentors in your breakout room, because we really have some fantastic ones. But speaking of fantastic, again, thank you, Gina and Pradnya, for joining us today, for being our speakers. We really do appreciate that. And we really do appreciate PSE&G's support. So moving right along, like I said, we're going to go into our breakout room shortly. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about careers in STEM. So even if students on the line, even if you're not sure about what career path you want to take, careers in STEM is something to consider, especially here in New Jersey. Over the next 10 years, STEM jobs are projected to grow 9% in our state, nearly double the growth expected for all other careers. And one thing is important to know is not every STEM job requires a 4-year degree. Educational requirements range from a high school diploma to a doctorate. However, many STEM workers have the appropriate math, science, and technology aptitudes and the specialized skills that demand high wages in the job market. So if high wages is something that you're interested in, definitely there's an education correlation to that. And continued learning, often with graduate degrees and management training, helps with job security, pay raises, and promotions. And we'll go into a little bit more detail of that later. And I did see a comment from Angela, who was one of our mentors from Sanofi, in the chat box, which I think is really helpful. Angela said, there are so many careers you may not have heard of yet that could be your career path. There's a very wide variety within STEM, and in this area, new types of jobs are created all the time to keep up with the science and technology, which is very, very true. One thing that people are really looking for right now in STEM fields is diversity. Diversity in STEM is crucial, and I'm sure our mentors will agree with this. Diverse perspectives drive innovation. Some of the most innovative ideas happen when ideas from different industries and cultures collide. And research has actually found that team members that have more diverse backgrounds are more creative and perform better. When you have a diverse team, you get a 360-degree picture, which can lead to different and creative ideas. That's what really leads to innovation. So we're going to talk for a minute about growth mindset in STEM careers. And this is going to be what we're going to be talking about in our breakout sessions momentarily. And both of our speakers touched on this a little bit already. Keep honing your skills. Keep learning to solve problems creatively. As you see, STEM jobs are going to keep changing, so there's always going to be opportunity to learn and upskill, to learn those new things that match the new innovations in the STEM fields. And really in any career path at all, and in college as well, having a growth mindset is something that's very, very important. So what exactly is a growth mindset? A simple definition of growth mindset is to think about the words themselves, growth and mindset. If you center your thoughts on growing, you'll grow. In other words, if you believe that you can do something, if you think positively and keep trying, you will learn and your abilities likely will improve. A growth mindset makes it easier to take on challenging tasks, helps you identify opportunities to experiment and solve problems, and opens you up to taking creative risks, all of which are essential skills for STEM and other high growth careers. Two keys to growth mindset, and again, this could be for any career path you take. First, you can reframe failure. In STEM careers, you need to learn from your mistakes and then apply what you've learned to improve on the next thing you do. If you think of fail, first attempt in learning. And I welcome all of our mentors who are joining. If you've had some type of failure early on in your career that you've learned from, go ahead and type that in there. If you've had a failure that you've learned from, go ahead and type in yes, because I'm thinking that most of us have experienced that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad, right? Fail can be first attempt in learning. I see lots of yeses. And again, mentors, you can talk about that a little bit more when we go to breakout sessions. And then the second key to growth mindset, put the word yet at the end of a negative statement to reframe your thinking from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Let that positive mental attitude help you see that it's not that you haven't succeeded, it's that you haven't succeeded yet, right? Put that yet on the end. And so many yeses there from some of our mentors who are really leaders in their field. So remember, PMA, positive mental attitude. And then this is the difference between a growth mindset and fixed mindset. Growth mindset is freedom. Persevere in the face of failures. Effort is required to build new skills. Find inspiration in other success. Embrace challenges. Accept criticism. Have that desire to learn and build your abilities. Essentially, as athletes work their bodies, we can all work our brains by having that growth mindset. By keep challenging ourselves, even when we do have failures, because that will lead us eventually to success. So I'm going to explain our team challenge now very quickly before we move to our breakout sessions. And then when we get there, I will reiterate it again. So in a moment, my colleague, Viviana, is going to post a link in the chat room. And that link is going to take us to WebEx meetings. So the reason why we do this is because that ensures that we have student and mentor privacy. Right now, students and our mentors are only able to use the chat room. No one except for the speakers is able to use their cameras or microphones, but that's all going to change when we move on to Breakout, to the WebEx meetings. So when we go to WebEx meetings, you'll be able to use your camera, you'll be able to use your microphone, and my colleague Viviana is going to put everyone in small group breakout sessions. Each breakout session will have a group of students and at least 2 volunteers. So what we're going to ask the volunteers to do when you get to your breakout session, and we will make sure that this goes smoothly. You're going to introduce yourself to the students in your room, and then you're going to pose this challenge. All right. So in your breakout session, you're going to pretend that you are a club, you're members of a school club, and you're holding a fundraiser by selling concessions at your school's basketball game. You're selling hot dogs, hamburgers, candy, and nachos. When you arrive to the fundraiser, you realize that the hamburger patties you ordered are still frozen. The game is about to start, and guess what? Hamburgers are your biggest seller. So that's the scenario. And what we'd like you to do when you go into those breakout sessions, after you've done your introductions, is figure out what you're going to do and what can you do in the future to ensure this doesn't happen again. So this is all about practicing creative problem solving and developing that growth mindset. By thinking of creative ways to solve the problem, what are you going to do in this scenario? And then what can you do in the future to ensure this doesn't happen again? Remember, failure is just, when you experience failure, you can learn from your mistakes. Okay, so again, I'll go over this again shortly when we move into our breakout session so that everybody is on the same page. But at this time, I would like to invite, invite our my colleague Viviana to post the link to the breakout sessions in the chat room. So Viviana, if you would kindly do that, please. Post that link to the breakout sessions in the chat room. And then what you can do is simply copy and paste it into your browser. And you will be directed immediately right to that breakout room. So let's see if that is there. I'm going to try to post it as well.